Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are joined by the Mindful Business Coach again and the CEO of MBT, More Business Today, Mary Balistreri, joining us once again to talk more about the work she does based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but she's here helping so many all over with her offerings like group coaching, workshops, business leadership coaching, and well, there's plenty more to that. So first and foremost, Mary, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me back. We are having the most beautiful weather here, and fall is my favorite season. I don't know about you, but I just love that crispness in the air.
Oh,
gets me going.
I know. What is the weather like there? Because I've never been to Milwaukee.
Oh, okay. We have wonderful seasons. Sometimes people feel like we don't get spring, but this year we had a wonderful spring. So right now it's a changeover. Like a week and a half ago, it was up to the high 70s, 80s every day. And now we've dropped just a little bit so that you get up in the morning and it's like 55. And then by midday, it's 72. I mean,
yeah, so it's similar to what we have here in New York right now. All right, good to know.
Right.
Well, I'm excited to have you back. We had a great conversation last time, and looking forward to, have more people getting to know you. So let's establish right now just a little bit about who you are, what you do for the new timers out there. Thank you so much.
Okay, and thank you. I am Mary Balistreri, the Mindful Business Coach. My business is MBT, More Business Today. And my tagline is building belonging into business, because everything that I do, whether it's individual coaching in business and leadership, group coaching from a number of, let's say, executives at an organization, or the workshops that I do as well, belonging is so important to me. And what you find and what I hear from all of my clients is that little piece is so important to engagement. And we're in a place right now in the United States where so many people just are not engaged in their jobs. And the little pieces where you're inclusive, including people, helping them understand their value to the organization, and then also helping them understand how they contribute to the success of the organization. All of those things build that sense of belonging. So that's the reason it's in my tagline. It's just vital to success for any business and any leader.
Beautiful. And how can we reach you, by the way? I don't think we established that yet. Website, phone number, all the above. Thank you, Mary.
Okay. Yeah. So the website is pretty simple. It's www.mbtmorebusinesstodayllc.com. And that's how you'll find me. And my phone is 414-759-3364. And please leave a message, because I have found sometimes people are shy of leaving voicemails. But really, if you're going to reach out to anybody who's a solopreneur like me, you need to leave your name and your phone number, or, feel free to grab and make a Calendly appointment off of my website, because anybody is free to have a free half-hour consultation about coaching and how it might help them.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I know today we're going to focus on the coaching, that it's about really receiving, the individual receiving the coaching, and the coach is really just the guide. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, that I ask every single person that I'm going to be coaching during that consultation is, what would have to change to help you achieve the success you're talking about, or help you achieve the goals that you're talking about? Because that's what we talk about in those consultations. What are you trying to achieve with coaching? And if the answer that I get back from the individual is about everything everyone else needs to do, then that person is not ready for coaching. And I've had that a number of times, and those are clients that I know it's just not the right time for them, because improving your life is based on what you do, not on what everybody else does. And if you look back at, those diagrams you see where you chart out here's the things I can control, and then here's on the outside of a circle is all the things I cannot control. The realization at the end is always the only thing you can control is yourself. So I always suggest to those people that they do a little bit more soul searching before they spend the money for coaching. On the other hand,
it's a commitment, right? Yeah.
It's a commitment to yourself. And you know what I find? So many people have a hard time doing something for themselves. And so that's one of the things, is unfortunately, but especially women, that's one of the things that we often end up working on, is when we're building confidence, is the acknowledgement that you deserve things in life. You deserve to take this, whatever, it's an hour twice a month out of your day to meet with your coach and talk about how you can improve whatever your situation is. So it's really that commitment that you make to yourself. And, you know, a person will be successful with coaching if they've made that commitment and they attend all of their coaching sessions and they do all their action items afterwards to move you towards the goal. But what I really do find is it's a rarity when somebody says, oh, everybody else has to show me these things in order for me to succeed. Most people, by the time they call me, they have acknowledged that they need to make this commitment to themselves.
Well, you mentioned, the commitment, right? And it takes that word, a commitment to, and accountability, I would say, right? To get the best out of this. But if you want more, you have to put the work in, the effort in. And I love that. I love that reference about commitment for sure. So we could talk a little more about that if you don't mind to start.
Yeah, I'd love to, because what I hear from clients, so I've been coaching officially, I got my first coaching certification 10 years ago, because it was 2014. But I was unofficially coaching within a work environment before that, really starting back in 2008. And what I hear from clients across the board and consistently, when I ask them, what are the reasons you feel that, because you always get feedback. I hope everybody does.
Yeah.
Did this work for you? What can I do better? What do I do well that I should keep doing? What can I do better? What should I change in terms of my own work? But what I hear from people who've gone through coaching is that there's two primary factors that made it successful and worthwhile for them. And the first one is the goal setting, because then there's a reason to meet. There's something you are trying to achieve. And what the coach can do, and what I will do with people, is pull them back into what was your goal for this year or these coaching sessions. What I find is that professionals, as they grow in whatever their industry might be, and business owners, as their work becomes more popular and they become more better known, everyone asks them to do everything. Right? Could you be on this board? Could you go to this event? Could you speak here? Could you speak there? And they come into me with this volume of stuff, and everything looks like a good opportunity some of the time. And so one of the things the coach does then is pulls you back to, what was your goal? How does doing this one thing fit into your goal? And then we can talk it through. And the individual themselves makes all the decisions. As we said at the beginning, the coach is the guide. So it's the individual. I can give you an array of thoughts or ask you an array of questions, but at the end of the day, the individual decides what to do. So that's the first thing. The second thing that makes coaching effective, and this is what I hear all the time, and you just hit the nail on the head, Jill, is accountability. Because there's so many people where, after I meet with somebody, I send them action items, and we always make sure that the action items are doable within the time span between that session and the next one. And I get agreement. We've agreed that these are the action items, and everybody gets a plan when they work with me. So I'm updating the plan in between. But what I hear from people often is, they'll glance at their appointments for the week and see, oh, I'm meeting with my coach on Tuesday. And then they start making their calls or doing whatever it is they were supposed to do because it's that accountability factor.
Yeah.
And without the accountability, just, people will be in a rut. You're not going to move forward unless you take action. So the action part is so important. And it's really what keeps people, you can't get all to everything,
No.
I work with a lot of attorneys, let's say, and somebody's got a big deal that had to close, or all of a sudden they're in court for litigation, or they're writing briefs, or it's a business owner and something big happens in their business and they're sort of pushed off. That kind of stuff happens all the time. And I am very flexible with, I'll talk with somebody and say, well, if you weren't able to do any of the action items, should we just move this session forward? What's an appropriate time frame? So that is all completely okay. But at the end of the day, if you're not acting, everything will just sort of fizzle and you're going to stay in that same space you were in.
Got it. Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And also just want to remind everyone, Mary, one more time, how we can contact you in the meantime before we continue. It's always important to plug ourselves.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So the website is www.mbtmorebusinesstoday.llc.com. Sometimes people try to reach out to me, they forget the LLC. So it's important to put that on there. And then my phone is 414-759-3364.
Perfect. And I know you wanted to also dive into developing business relationships as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. What I found from coaching way back in the unofficial years, very quickly I discovered that as you're developing business, developing your leadership qualities is vital. And so what do you think of when you think of leadership? Being able to lead a team, being able to manage big projects within the team. But do we often think about the other things? Mindset, which we talked about last time, listening, and then having sort of that open space to allow yourself to really understand where someone else is coming from. And so at the end of the day, I always say everything's about relationships. I really believe it is personal life, professional life. Everything you do, every action is creating a reaction of some kind. So we started with the mindset ideas, like what's going on in your head before you start on something, setting that into a positive place so that you're setting yourself up for success. It's the next move, and this is part of emotional intelligence. The assessment that I use is Travis Bradberry. It's the EQ2, real simple thing to take, and he has these 4 quadrants. The first one is self-awareness. That's what we talked about last time. Then there's self-management, social awareness, and then finally relationship management. And you work on whichever category you got the lowest score for starters, right? And it's just human nature. It's nothing to be ashamed of, no matter which category you end up starting in.
Good. But
the self-management part, right, is, okay, now I have a better understanding of myself and putting myself in a positive position. But if you know, and you've learned over time, one of the things you need to manage is your emotions. And I had a client I recently worked with on this in particular. If she had an opportunity to plan ahead for something, for a meeting or a conversation or whatever, she'd do a pretty okay job because she could put herself in the right place. But let's say something came up that triggered her. Triggered is a word I talk about a lot of the time in a conversation. And she tends to respond very emotionally to it. So part of what we would work through, the self-management, first you got to have that self-awareness. Like, I know that I have this issue, right? That I will, and then what she would do is either go too far one way, which is spouting off all of her concerns in a way that really could cause people to shut down because it's too forceful, or she would go completely the opposite way and then shut down and not say anything. And what happens in the both situation, well, in that situation, people can feel that energy. And I found people can even feel that energy through video conferencing, so they're going to feel it. They're going to catch on.
I agree.
And so, right. And so that's not a real positive thing for developing relationships. So we sat down and I've done this with a number of clients. We create some kind of process for that person, like what's going to work for you. And we spend some time refining the process. But the first thing is always pause, right? So you've got this alert. You can feel you were triggered in some way. Pause, of course. Take a deep breath.
Pause, breathe. I was going to say pause, breathe.
Pause and breathe. And then depending on who the person is, there's a number of different sort of ideas or things that you can do. One of them is to write down what you're thinking if you're in a meeting, let's say, and then give yourself, take those beats and not necessarily talk about that until you're at a point where you've decided this is what you want to talk about and how you want to say it. One of the things we learned from conversational intelligence, which I mentioned last time, is this idea of, first understanding what are you saying to yourself, and then moving into how are you talking to other people? And I think this is really interesting. There's actual brain science behind it. Judith Glaser is the one who wrote the book and the one I learned from. And her husband was a neurologist, and they were testing out with MRIs and the whole thing, the effects of conversation. So this is actually a truism. You can, in the way that you talk to people, create cortisol, which is the stress drug or the stress hormone, right? So you might be creating cortisol in somebody, which is stressing them out. Some cortisol is always good some stress is good because it helps us achieve, but it's what's the impact you're making? Or you can help somebody produce oxytocin. And then oxytocin is known as sort of the love hormone.
Oh yeah, I was wondering what that was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so funny. When I was in class, somebody said oxytocin, and I remember being waiting to hear which one is that, because I didn't necessarily know. But anyhow, so it's what are you creating in people? Are you creating more stress hormone? Are you creating more of the love, openness hormone? And the reason that's all important is because, and I think I mentioned this last time, people do not listen to everything you're saying. Every time you speak, every single person is throwing on or loading on just all of their experiences, all of the connotations, everything from their own life. And that's why it's so hard sometimes to have a conversation and have two people go away with the same meaning. So if you're more aware of this and you're using and being more inclusive with people, asking them questions and including them, you're much more likely to develop a relationship. And that's what it's all about. And then people say, oh, relationship selling, why are you always talking about relationships? And it's because whether or not you sell something in that moment is really not the point. The point is over time. And if you've built a relationship with people, you're much more likely for them to be repeat customers and to want to work with you more. And then the other big one is referrals, which is, you can look at it a million different ways, but it's an old idea that if people enjoy what you did for them, they'll tell other people, and then you can get more work out of that. But one of the examples I wanted to use, so you've moved on maybe from self-awareness and you started managing yourself. And then the next thing is the social awareness. And people talk about body language and, facial expression. How are you impacting someone? Those are all cues. So I have a little example of I tend to love all my clients. But I'll say one of my favorite clients had a thing where he would call me right before he was going to a meeting with a potential new client of his own.
Okay.
And he would say, oh, I just wanted to check with you because this is what I'm planning to say, and this is what I'm planning to sell them.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get your 2 cents. And then every single time I'd say, okay, let's take a step back, planning to sell them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think about it. Why don't you ask them a question and listen?
Yeah.
Simple questions. What kind of challenges are you facing today? Another really good one with a potential client is, what are your company goals for the year? And, and then the obvious add-on would be to listen to that and say, I'm wondering how I can help, and then speak more about what you're doing. The rule of thumb for business is that the potential client or client should be speaking 80% of the time, and you, the provider of the services, should speak 20% of the time.
Trying to do that math there. Wow. Okay.
Oh,
interesting.
yeah, it's tough.
It is. That is fascinating. I'm trying to do the percentages here. Wow.
So I always tell people, if they're preparing for a meeting with a client or a potential client, just spend the time, write down a couple of questions that you want to ask them, open-ended questions to get them talking. And what I found for, this is in the selling realm as opposed to the leadership realm, is you are more likely, like, you could bring in, just throwing out numbers, you bring in a $20,000 engagement right away by selling the other way, saying, this is what I'm selling, blah, 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 blah. Are you interested? If they're interested, yes. But if you take the time to really listen to what's going on and all the challenges they might have, that could easily become a $100,000 engagement year over year, because you're establishing that rapport and you find out so many additional things. It's just, for so many people, I just tell them, maybe visualize a stop sign in your head. Like, ask question, stop, and listen.
Well, let me ask you, obviously you've been in business for quite some time, very successful, helping others become more successful, but there's always going to be some of those, ups and downs, or as you say, dips and curves, right? And
yes.
So we all are on this journey and path to be better, to do better, but, how long does this type of self-improvement take to learn these techniques?
What I found with people is, it is, as you said, ups and downs, dips and curves. I was working with one client. She was doing great. So she would, we had 2 or 3 calls in a row where she's like, I'm working on this, I'm doing this, I'm seeing the change, I've affected the pause. She's so excited. And then maybe 3 calls like that. Then the next call, she comes out and she's kind of glum and she's like, I feel like none of that even mattered, and now I slid back. It's a process. It takes time, and it takes the effort and the consistency of really working on it on a regular basis. So at the end of an engagement, I always talk to someone about, how are you going to keep yourself moving forward?
Yeah.
Who's going to hold you accountable? Because it's like anything, if you don't practice it, it can fade away, just like muscles. If you're not working out, your muscles atrophy. It's the same thing with all of these concepts, especially the ones, if they're not natural to you, and you have a big, your natural state is to do a certain thing, like react emotionally. If you're not practicing the process that you put in place for yourself, it'll slide back. You have to keep using it.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing that. And if you are curious who we're talking to, it's Mary. Don't forget, MBT, More Business Today, LLC.com, building belonging into business. And she's here as the mindful business coach, I should say, helping to guide you towards this journey to build out self-awareness, to better improve. And by the way, she offers a free 30-minute consultation, which I always love telling our listeners. It's important. And what else did you want to share for today? We still have some time left.
Yeah, so just kind of to wrap it up, I've got a couple things going on where people can tune in and see a little bit more of what I'm like. On October 22nd, it is at 9 o'clock in the morning Central.
Okay.
I'm giving a presentation, and I had to write it down. It's called Before, During, and After Networking Events.
Ooh.
What is your strategy? And because it's me, you can imagine it's going to be all about, first of all, planning, having goals. I believe in having goals just even for a networking event, so that you can sort of know if you succeeded, and also give yourself grace and be like, so many people go to a bunch of things and then they're like, I have nothing to show for this. So that helps you really understand what you're doing. So the strategy part, and then of course the second part is all about the relationship building, because the networking events are only the beginning. You might meet someone, but building that business relationship over time is the thing that is going to help you achieve your bigger goals.
Absolutely.
So that is coming up. And then just as an aside, I write a blog, the MBT blog, and the MBT can stand for all kinds of things depending on the subject of the blog. But this year it actually follows a couple of specific characters through what they're going through with their jobs. The next one comes out a week from today. And it is going to be about how your brand and what you project as a professional is really all about your values and the community you build.
Oh,
so just those two things.
Great. Thank you. And one more time, how can we contact you?
Sure. The website is www.mbtmorebusinesstodayllc.com, or you can call me 414-759-3364. I'm looking forward to meeting all of your listeners.
Well, thank you so much. Pleasure always having you here. Thank you for being so, of course, as always, prepared and knowledgeable and helpful. And thank you. Great conversation again. Thank you again, Mary.
And thank you, Jill.
You're welcome. You have a great week, and I will talk with you soon. Thanks again.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.